We are live on YouTube and recording this as well. And hello to all of you who are tuning in via live stream. And thank you to all of you who have joined us in the Zoom meeting. These Thursday evening Zoom meetups like this one are the public-facing part of the vidwheel Creator Network, which I was kind of hoping Eric Worrell would come tonight because he, a long time ago, coined the term that this is a video support group. And I think I'm going to start using that because ultimately that's essentially what we are. We use a separate closed social media and e-learning network to teach you how to use your gear, provide a supportive community of folks that are building their businesses through video as well. There are opportunities to learn strategy, technique, and other video-related skills, and also unlimited consulting to guide you on your video journey. So if you find that intriguing and you like the content that you hear tonight, please, consider reaching out and learning a little more about the network. You can find info on our website, vidwheel.com. There's also a link in the description, and if you're interested in learning more or just talking video, there's also a booking link in the live stream description as well. So with all that out of the way, I want to welcome everyone to this presentation. Sorry, messed up in my notes here, but if you want to get the full experience, like the folks who are in the Zoom meeting here, join us at our next Zoom meetup, and that's on December 16th at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll be continuing the same monthly theme that we're working on tonight of video sales with a presentation by Garen Parkins. His presentation is called How to Weaponize Video to Generate Leads and Close with Continuity. So the event info for that is also published in the description for this live stream and on the vidwheel company page on LinkedIn under the events tab. So let's talk video sales. That's what we're discussing all month. And personally, I think one of the easiest ways to integrate video into your sales process a little is to create an introduction video, a digital elevator pitch, if you want to use the old-fashioned terminology. And I recommend you use it everywhere to warm up your leads and contacts just that little bit. Put it on social media, put it in your professional profiles, link to it in your email signature, put it on your website. This is a chance to meet people and start to build rapport before you ever have a conversation. And it gives your prospects a chance to get to know you a little bit. So in short, it's a great way to connect. And connection is a crucial thing when building a business relationship, especially for solopreneurs and small business owners. So with very little time and effort on your part, once it's up and running, you can be connecting with, anybody in your kind of general area digitally. So that's my simple tip. But let's dive deeper into sales and video by talking to the owner of Yellow Watermelon Copywriting, Llacey Simmons. Llacey is going to present copywriting and copywriting your video offer without selling. Llacey, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to this group tonight. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'll just go ahead and share my screen.
Excellent. The floor is yours.
Awesome. I appreciate it. All right, cool. So we'll jump in. Hopefully everyone can see my screen okay. But yeah, so hopefully over the next 20 minutes or so, we'll go through from a copywriter's perspective how we can come up with or create video scripts that do more storytelling than selling. And so I like to call it story selling. So the idea really is to get those that are watching to really lean in. So whether you're creating a video script that you're going to be filming to either post on Facebook, maybe you're doing a Facebook Live and you're kind of reading off of a script, or even if you're creating a video that might be hosted in a conference, a virtual conference of some sort, or posted on YouTube. I'll take you through a couple strategies in the form of a football analogy. So if we break it down by quarters, what we can do to prepare before the game, be on the field, and then have that post-game advantage. So I'll walk you through each of those parts. And then, like Neil said, happy at the end of the presentation to open it up with questions. So if we jump in, the pregame prep. So this applies to video scripts, video sales letters, as well as, unless you're one of those really well-versed people that can jump in and start recording and talking about a topic off the top of their head, there's always some pregame prep, I like to say, that's involved, just to make sure, one, we know what we're talking about in terms of the theme, but more importantly, that we can stay focused on the person that's going to be consuming that content, so that what we say and the themes and the ideas and the things that we share are really going to be things that are going to be relevant, top of mind, and resonate with the people that are watching. So what does our pre-game prep look like? So I always say we want to start with the flex your them muscles. So as a copywriter, I work with a lot of people that are growing personal brands. Not to say that they have an ego, because we all kind of have one, especially when we start to be successful in our fields of expertise. So I usually tell all my clients these two things just to kind of get it out of the way. So I'll say, you're brilliant and you have so much to offer. But if we really want to get people to lean into whatever you're going to be saying on a video, whatever you're going to be writing on LinkedIn, even if it's a post, we have to talk about them. So it's really for us to flex our them muscle as opposed to flexing our us or our you muscle. And so I'll walk you through a couple different things that we can do just from a high level perspective of how we can make sure that we keep the focus where it should be as we start to craft these scripts so that they really do get people to lean in. So first, we want to start with getting really focused on the why. Why am I even doing this video? Is this a video that's going to be shared as a TEDx talk versus is this a video that I'm just putting on Facebook to just share kind of my thought leadership? Is this a video I'm putting on YouTube and I want to drive traffic to it to kind of book tickets for an event that's coming up? But just getting really clear on our why, overall why are our goals of that script. But then more importantly, dive into why should somebody watch this now? Is there some urgency or some scarcity that we could build into it? Just kind of thinking about these things before we even get into the script writing. But why would someone want to stop their day out of all the things they have going on, stop the scroll if it's on a Facebook feed, or even on a LinkedIn feed as well? Why would they want to click? And how can we make it super enticing and compelling just from the thumbnail, just from the first couple of things that we say in the first few seconds? Why would someone want to take the time to actually consume that content? And then why you? So why are we the right person to tell that story? I mean, there's so many people creating video content. What makes us any different? Is it a different story that we can tell? Do we have a different perspective of something that they need to hear? Do we have a new solution that maybe they've never heard of before? But starting to think through, not just why should somebody watch it, but why should they listen? Who are we to kind of be that person or that vehicle to tell this story, or to take their time out of their day? And then why should they really listen? Are they listening to maybe to take a next step? Are they listening for a certain perspective that we're sharing? Are they listening because maybe we're giving them a solution to a problem they've been struggling to solve? But really taking a step back and really getting focused before we write anything and before we record anything on our why really does help to set the frame. And then sometimes in this exercise, I've had plenty of clients to go through this and they realize maybe a video is not the right platform because they can't really check these boxes off. Maybe there's another avenue for them to get to that same result that they want to get through. Maybe it's through a white paper or just a conversation on the phone. But just getting really clear on why you're creating that video really keeps you on track. And it also helps you dial in whatever you want to share so that people do want to lean all the way in and listen to every single second that you have of your video. So again, in our pregame prep, we want to make sure that what we create is worth it. So worth is an acronym. And so I'll walk you through the different parts of worth. And so these are some things that we really want to think about in terms of our ideal client. What are some of these components that they might be navigating in their life or in their business that we can weave in to the script that we'll create? And so this is the important part of any messaging we put out, whether it's something video, audio, or even written, that a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners don't do. We don't really take the time to put ourselves in the shoes of our ideal client. So then we create content that may not really be shared, may not be interacted with, and it's really superficial. So if we can take time, even if it's just 30 minutes, to just pause and just do our worth check is what I say. So what are those worries? What are the things that are keeping them up at night that we might be able to highlight in our script, or we might be able to bring up as a way to kind of pull them in? So when we can talk about things that are really in people's realm of reality, that's when you have people wanting to hear more, because now you're hitting on a chord that is tied to something that's meaningful for them. So what are the things that are keeping them up at night? Some people say what's on their whiteboard is what I heard a sales person last week actually say. So what are those things that they're really struggling to try to find? What are they Googling? What are they watching YouTube to try to get a solution for? Think about those things and we'll figure out when we get into on the field advantage, what we can do then to weave those in. What opportunities might they be looking to seek? Are they in a place where maybe they're looking for more PR opportunities? Are they looking for more business opportunities? But what are those opportunities in their market or in their space that might be opening to hearing or opening to considering? And then for our resonates, what are those words that are trigger words for them in a good way, that could catch their attention? Maybe, maybe it's not always revenue, in this space of being in COVID where we've been starved of communication or connection, especially in-person connection. Those buzzwords of 6 figures, 8 figures, 9 figures that may have drawn people in 3 or 4 years ago aren't getting the same results on a video. But saying things like taking a 4-week vacation or having the time to take a nap in the middle of your day, those types of words and phrases are really resonating for people in this space where they feel completely overworked, no work-life balance anymore because everything's virtual, and just wanting to have more fulfillment as opposed to more income. So just think through, what are those words that or phrases that could really get my ideal client when they're hearing the video to either know that I know what they're going through, or get them to really kind of listen up for because they're curious to know what's going to come next. Then T is takeaways. So what are the things that my ideal client may want to learn? What are the things I might be able to teach them? Are they a busy marketing agent, agency owner who wants to figure out how to streamline their processes? Maybe the buzzword might be systems or automation. Maybe those might be some of the buzzwords you use, but you might give them a takeaway lesson about how to streamline their process or how to come up with just one offer. So what are those takeaway lessons that we can build into our script that we know our ideal client is probably looking for and is ready to receive? And then H is hero. So if you've ever read the book Story Brand by Donald Miller, if you haven't, definitely recommend reading it. He has a big component about making our ideal client the hero of the story. So how can we have them walk away from whatever piece of content, video content they consume? How can we have them walking away really feeling like they got something of value and that now they can be the hero of their own story and they can tackle that problem, that whatever is causing them kind of discomfort, but they've walked away from our video getting something that's worth it, a teachable lesson that they can actually apply now to be on their kind of hero's journey path. So that's how we can make it worth it. So once we've done our pregame prep, we've gotten clear on why we're actually creating the video, why us, why now, why someone should stop and listen. We've taken the time to really be thoughtful and intentional with where our ideal client is coming from and thinking about all those things we can hit in the script to make it worth it for them to listen. Now we're ready to hit the field, right? So it's like first quarter, we're coming out of the tunnel. If you're familiar with football, we're ready to get started and do kickoff. So now it's game time. And so for a copywriter's perspective, game time is where we actually sit down and we start doing the writing. And so before we go through my unique approach that I take, I do want to bring your attention to something. So the average adult, especially in this COVID space, where we've been oversaturated with email, with Zoom calls, with notifications from every phone, computers everywhere coming, at all directions from us, you literally have 45 seconds on a digital platform to really catch someone's attention. Because right now, studies are showing that the average adult attention span on any digital task, whether that's an email, whether that's a text message, whether that's trying to log into your bank account trying to figure out your password, anything that's in a digital realm, our attention span is about 45 seconds. So you can imagine if someone's scrolling, if we can get them to stop scrolling, we have to then try to get over that hump of 45 seconds to keep them engaged while their brain starts to check out and starts to think about the email notification they just got or the child they have to go pick up from school. So that's something to keep in mind. But to raise the stakes even greater, we really only have 3 seconds to prevent a click. And that's a click out of your video or off of your timeline or out of LinkedIn altogether or out of Facebook altogether. So we're in this space of having between 3 to 45 seconds to capture someone's attention, which means when we write these scripts and we do these videos, we have to be really intentional from the very beginning of how and what we say to get people to really pay attention. So how do we actually do that? And so I'm going to walk you through what I say is your secret weapon, which is stories or story time. So story is another acronym, kind of like my acronyms. And so I'll break down story and how we can create video scripts that really get people to watch. And if it's done right, we're not necessarily bound on time in terms of having it only be 30 seconds or 2 minutes or 5 minutes. If we do it right and tell the story, you can get people to really lean in for upwards of 15, 20, 30 minutes. It's all about really making it clear what's in it for them to keep listening, and making as much about the script about them as we possibly can. So story starts with S, which is shock and awe. So remember, we said we have between 3 seconds and 45 seconds to kind of get people engaged. If we go with the 3 second end, that means we have about 6 words we can say before that 3 seconds is up. So you can imagine hitting that stopwatch, watching the seconds tick by, and that's how much time you have, 3 seconds to try to capture someone before they click off. So it's about 6 or 7 words. So I always recommend for the very first thing that you say in a video to be one of these 3. It can either be a thought-provoking question. Remember, ideally like 6 or 7 word question, a really powerful statement, or a shocking statistic, or something that's highly relevant to them in terms of a statistic. So that could look like a number of things. If you take a look at my LinkedIn page, I tend to write in the same way that I'm suggesting you do these story scripts for your videos. But maybe it's a powerful question of, have you ever wanted to make $100,000 in 5 minutes? Or a statement, my son turned $64 into $543,000 in 8 months. So something that's just going to really get people to stop and listen and lean in, and then get intrigued of what's going to come next. It's tricky to do because remember, we still have about that 3 second attention span to grab them before they will click off of the video. But that's how we want to start our video scripts, is with something that's shock and awe, something that builds curiosity, builds intrigue, causes them to stop and think, but something along those lines. Once we've done that, we go to T, which is tell them. So this is all about really painting the picture of why they need to keep listening. Once we've pulled them in with what we call in copy a hook, we pull them in with a hook. We now have to kind of have that hook pay off. Otherwise, it's going to be like a fish that wiggles off. They're going to be off into the stream and they're gone. So this now is where we want to transition the script into something that's either super relevant to them. So we've said something in the beginning to pull them in. We now need to make it extremely relevant and connected to why they need to keep listening. Maybe it's not something that's time or urgency or scarcity based. So you need to listen to this now because, in the next 15 minutes, this video might disappear. That's kind of a little bit of a fear factor type of thing, but there's urgency that we could build in. Or if you miss this, you might spend the next 15 years struggling to be able to automate your business. It's something that we can talk about, either urgency related or something about the future, but we need to immediately tie in whatever we say in the beginning of our script into something that's going to be extremely relevant to them and whatever they're going through, which is why that worth it slide that we talked about with the worries, the opportunities, the resonating, the takeaways, that's really where we can pull from those to make that transition from what we've done to pull them in to listen to the video to then segue to keep them listening to the video. Because we could bring up maybe something that they're worried about, an opportunity they're looking for, something that we can quickly kind of teach them. But that's really what the T is about, is tell them. Now that we've captured their attention, they're ready, they're a receptive audience, what can we tell them to keep them to listen? Now, I am a storytelling copywriter is what I say. So I always tend to infuse emotion into the stories that I write or the scripts that I write. And emotion doesn't necessarily have to be, something that would make somebody cry, but emotions can really get at the humanity of what that person is going through. So in this space, like I mentioned with COVID, we're all starved of, connection. We've, for many of us, been isolated from the things that we may have loved to do, or feel very restricted in not being able to do things that we want to do. So being able to infuse in those words like freedom or happiness or joy or fulfillment or satisfaction, those types of words, if you can weave them into the script as you write it, are trigger words that subconsciously help us to relax and get us to actually lean in. Because now you're saying words and things that we want to hear more of. Maybe there's a fear that you can kind of lightly touch on. I'm not a fear-based copywriter, but maybe there's a fear or concern or a challenge that they have that you can weave in to kind of get a little bit of an emotionality kind of hook in there as well. Or maybe there's an aspirational goal that they want. So, you could make imagine then statements. Like, imagine a year from now when you have 6 figures in the bank and you can take a 4-week vacation. Well, I can show you how to do that. So these are all ways that we can touch on the human side of the person that's watching the video. Once we've hooked them in, we've told them why it's relevant to keep watching, we can start to push some of these emotional buttons in a good way to really get them to now feel connected to what we're saying. Then we want to be able to move into our R, which is reflect. So we want them to naturally start to ask themselves these questions. So, great, Llacey, you've given me all this information. So what's next? We want them to be like at the tip of their chair, waiting for you to tell them exactly the next thing to do. Because ideally, that would position us well to give them a call to action. So either we can explain to them, so this is what all this means, or here's the next step you may want to take. But we want to get them to a point where they're at this R stage, where they're reflecting on how can I take everything that I've just learned and heard from this person on this video, and how can I apply it to my life, to my business, to whatever I'm trying to achieve, and how can this person maybe help me? So these are some of the questions. If we do it right, we want them to be able to either ask these questions themselves naturally as they're watching our videos, or we want to be able to answer these questions for them. And some of that can be like I call it a fake two-way dialogue. So even though it's a one-way video, unless you're doing a live stream where people can comment, it could look something like, I can imagine you're probably asking, okay, I gave you a lot of information, so what's next? Well, I'll tell you. Or you might be asking, well, how can I implement this in my business? Well, let me tell you. Or we might give them a bunch of information. We might say, which is why I'd love to be able to invite you into my program. So the idea, though, is now we can take this transition of doing all these things where we've given them information and now start to transition them into a place where we're getting them open and receptive to what's next, whatever that could be. That could be an offer, something that's paid. That could be having them join a Facebook group, having them share the video they're watching, having them send us an email. We just want to get them to a point where they're receptive enough to then be open to whatever comes next. And then that's where we can move them on to what I call the why, which is the yes. So in order to do that, I usually use a technique where I do a lot of imagine statements. So I start to get them committed or imagining themselves in that ideal state where they've taken whatever I've taught them and applied it. And now they're on the other side of that worry that they may have come to the video having. So imagine what it would feel like to have your messaging be as powerful as the work that you do. Or in 6 months from now, what would it look like to have your bank account say $1 million? Or, imagine if you could wake up with no anxiety and no stress because your whole, year's worth of content is planned out. So having those statements starts to get people really in a space of, yeah, I really do want that. Or, yeah, that sounds amazing. How do I do that? So we're kind of pushing or coaxing them a little, further along in that process. We've got them open and receptive. Now we're getting them saying internally, yes, I want to know more. I want to know how I have that. And then now we've positioned ourselves as being that person that can be the yes for them. And then I always, in this space, what's working really well is not hard selling, but just giving people an open invitation. So when I get to this step in terms of a video script, I always use things like, well, you can decide. You always have the option, which we all do, to figure things out on your own. Or, you can work with somebody and actually get to where you want to go even faster. Totally up to you. Whatever you do, well, however you decide, I'm here to support you. So having that dialogue as opposed to buy now, it's only available for 15 minutes, having more of an invitation really does allow people to have that reflection process to think, wow, this person actually is authentic. They let it be known that I have 2 different options. They're not forcing me or making me feel like something's wrong with me if I don't go with whatever they're offering me. And now I feel more comfortable to be able to take that next step. And when you take that invitation approach and really lay your cards out on the table, most times, 9 times out of 10, people will be much more receptive than if we make it feel like they have to make a high pressure, decision through a video or through some type of script that we put out there. Now, the other thing that I will say, depending on how you leverage your video, whether it's a Facebook Live, whether it's a YouTube, if there's a way to know who's watched your video or who's interacted with it, there's a post-game play that we always can do from a copy perspective to help build that engagement. So if we know someone has watched our video, or they shared it, or they commented on it, or they've reached out and said something to us specifically about that video that they've consumed, I always recommend a post-game play of just following up. So it's 3 R's to make it memorable. So I usually do a reach out, whether it's a text message, a DM, an email nurture sequence, But if there's a way for us to track who's watched your video, this is really where we can close a lot of deals, again, without necessarily selling. We're reaching out to just say, hey, just checking in, reminding them, hey, I saw that you watched my video. Again, I'm here to help if you ever need it. No rush, no worries either way. So just real quick, reach out, remind, and then you just have a relaxed position. You're here to help whenever they're ready. But if they decide not to move forward, that's fine with you too. But that's also a great way to leverage the post-game part. Once you've done the script, you've recorded it, you've posted it. We don't want to lose that traction once we know someone's watched it. And at the end of the day, even if they don't move forward, this is a great opportunity to get their feedback to see how we can improve that script the next time we go out on the field. Cool. So just to recap, I know I threw a lot at you in a little bit of time. We want to do that pregame prep, so really get clear on who our ideal client is, what's in it for them, what's keeping them up at night, the opportunities they might be looking for, the words that might be resonating with them. We want to spend that time doing that pregame prep. When we get on the field, we can take all those insights and create a really powerful story-based script, going through that story format of shock and awe, tell them, so set the context, open up, put some emotionality into it, or help them reflect on everything we've taught them. And then the why, move them towards a yes without forcing them into it. And then remember, we have that post-game wrap-up where once someone's consumed our video content, if we have the ability to, we want to make sure we at least try to follow up at least once, just to say, hey, just want to check in. Remember, you watched this. I'm always here to help. If not, no worries. So that's my presentation. I'm more than happy now to open it up to questions.
Mute myself if I'm going to be talking. Very well done, Llacey. I very much liked it. Like the whole intro, you got to hook 'em type of thing is some really common kind of video knowledge, but then you like went down and made it much more actionable with like all the steps after the hook. So that was awesome. Does anybody have any questions for Llacey? And if not, I always drum up a few myself. So any, no, all right. So, well, I guess this is less of a question, but the other note that I have here that I thought was a great idea is the kind of self-conversation type of thing. If you're trying to create that conversational kind of situation, but you can't possibly have a two-way street there. I think that works well, right? I bet you're wondering this, which I think is a good solution there. And let me see. So, and this is not a question either, but the overall kind of thought behind the presentation, I would say, is make it about them, right? Yeah. About their problems, about telling stories that are relevant to them, about about guiding them to the next step. It's instead of being like, I'm gonna make a video about this subject and starting it from that perspective, it's more about what can I do to help the person on the other side of the camera, right?
Yeah, and just to add a little more flavor to that too, I mean, this is the same approach that I tell my clients to take for any copy, whether it's a sales letter, a post, anything that's going to be client facing, to really think about this. And in the exercise I have them do is I say, what emotion would your ideal client who's never met you, what would they need to feel to be comfortable to move forward with you? And so for me as a copywriter, I would say that my ideal clients need to feel that they can trust me in order to be able to move forward and wanting to hire me. So if I know that trust is a fundamental emotion that I need to evoke within them or to exude myself as being trustworthy, then I would take an approach of making sure the content I produce creates that sense of trust. So whether that's sharing my vulnerability so they can see me as, look, I'm an average, I'm a person. I don't, put myself on a higher pedestal than anyone else. Whether that's having, really authentic kind of posts that show the human side of me with me and my 9-year-old son, but just thinking about all those ways that I can convey trust in the real world, in my posts, in my videos, in those things, so that when they consume that content, they're feeling that trust, and then they're more likely to reach out to me.
Yeah, that that is that's great. Like we were talking about earlier today in office hours, Len, kind of digging deep with that ideal client group, right? And that would be a good example of it. Knowing exactly what they're looking for from you as a vendor is like a really important thing. And if you can tie it to a you know a characteristic like trust or something that like is so important in a lot of situations, that's a great way to do it. So that's another excellent tip. I will look around the room again and see if anybody has anything. Okay. It's going to just be more of me then. Okay. So I want to comment on another thing, and then maybe you could spin off from there.
Sure.
You mentioned that you're not a fear-based copywriter, and that's like always an interesting thing, right? A lot of people will tell you to write offers and copy based on fear of missing out or just fear in general, right? These days, especially, fear is the number one selling flavor here, right? So it's what if you don't write about, I guess, two parts. Why do you make the decision? Like, I agree with you on it, so I'm not asking from
Yeah.
that perspective, but why do you personally make the decision not to use fear as something to kind of convince people to take action? And then, if not, like, what else do you use? What are some other, I guess, emotions you can tie to?
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, we already live in a very fear-based world, especially the past 2 years now, that there is a such thing as numbing fear, where we're just always in fear. More fear is not going to help us take action. But taking the opposite approach would be something that would be, painting that ideal situation of what it could look like on the other side of this product, or what the other side of this solution for them is really what's going to help you break through this noise of constant fear that's always in everywhere we turn. The other thing to think about too about is I always have this internal dialogue with myself of, if I create copy that's fear-based and they buy my product, are they now associating the fear with my product? So it's like, I would rather if write from a place of benefit and a place of joy and a place of happiness, or whatever those positive words can look like. So then now my product or whatever they purchase from me is now associated with those things, as opposed to it being associated with a lack of scarcity or urgency, or this I gotta have this now type of thing.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, great answer. All right, I'll give everybody one last shot at asking asking a question, and if we don't have one, then I think I'm going to go ahead and do a wrap up here.
Okay.
From Lacey, it's all about copywriting's all about your client. Who are you speaking to? What speaks to them, and how can you solve their problems, or kind of tell them what the next step in their journey is, and do all that without evoking fear. There's too much fear in the world, and if you go the other direction with it, you're not only not adding to that problem, but you may just get better results. So thank you to all of you who joined us via live stream. Thank you to everyone in the Zoom meeting here as well. Again, I'll bring up, don't miss the next Zoom meetup of this vidwheel creator network group that's coming up on December 16th at 8 p.m. Eastern. Garen Parkins is presenting how to weaponize your video to generate leads and close with continuity. Find the link on our LinkedIn company page under the events tab, or you can look in the description of this live stream to RSVP to that event. Have a good night.